Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another episode of UFO Man Live. This is episode number 24. Tonight we are going to be talking about the breaking news. Hold on a second here. Had some feedback there. We're going to be talking about the breaking news in regards to the Tucker Carlson Fox News report stating that the Office of Naval Intelligence is going to release limited classified information pertaining to off-world vehicles that are allegedly not made on the Earth. They supposedly have definitive evidence that the elements used to create the materials that create these ships are not made on Earth. So in effect, they're admitting to alien life, which is something that we have all been waiting for more than 70 plus years. So this is groundbreaking. It is a game changer. We are all wondering what they're actually going to release. Are they going to trickle it down to us like the ATIP program did? Or are they actually going to come clean and tell us about the vehicles? We do have some supporting information this evening, and we're going to play the clip from Tucker Carlson so that you can see the news brief. It's only 46 seconds long. I want to welcome everybody in the chat room. I really appreciate the fact that you hung around so long. Very, very, very good of you. We have been looking forward to this stream all day. So let's get going. My co-host this evening, my guest is Tommy Highway. He is an esteemed author and a ufologist who is learning the ropes and getting to where he needs to be as a very major player. Welcome, Tommy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are going to go with the Tucker Carlson report first, and then we will go from there. So let me get this set up. Okay, been a month since I've done this, so all righty. All right. Here's the report from Tucker Carlson.
This is a Fox News alert. There are new findings tonight in the search for extraterrestrial life. The New York Times reporting that a secretive Pentagon unit tasked with investigating UFO sighting is quite likely releasing some of its findings soon. And those findings could be stunning, particularly for people who have doubted the existence. The Pentagon has been conducting classified hearings on UFOs for more than a decade. We know very little about what they've found, but apparently just recovered are off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. That's a direct quote. We're not exactly sure what they mean by that, but some of it's self-evident. So it's a big story, and we are scouring through the reporting on it right now. We'll bring you much more right here tomorrow night. This is a...
Okay, so in regards to that news report, it was really brief, but I have to say that it was very telling in the fact that even the mainstream media is looking at it as a credible report. I have something else I want to play, but before I do that, we have Tommy Highway. He's going to discuss the New York Times article that was released in regards to this story. So go ahead, Tommy.
Hey,
Tommy.
folks, I appreciate everybody having me. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming out. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Like I say, hey, folks, I appreciate everybody for coming out. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. This is the UFO thing has been a stigma for so long, and I'm actually a victim of that myself. I mean, I've been a professional guy now for more than 20 years in IT, and I've worked for the government for many years, things like that. And I couldn't tell my story. I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. And I think that I'm not alone. I'm sure that a lot of other people out there that are professional people are afraid to come out and talk about their stories because they're afraid of, the ramifications to their career, things of that nature. So I'm glad that we finally got, and I think that what we're looking at here, folks, is what I'm going to call soft disclosure. Okay. When the government's talking about we've got things in our airspace that were not built on Earth, that means they're not ours. All right. That means they're not American spacecraft, anything like that, in my opinion. And I think this is a big deal. But I'm going to read you the article. It says a long-hidden UFO investigative unit within the Pentagon will make some of its findings public, according to the New York Times report. The unit, which is now part of the Office of Naval Intelligence, has spent over a decade discussing mysterious events in classified briefings, according to the news outlet. A government contractor told the Times that he gave classified briefing to the Department of Defense in March, describing retrievals from off-world vehicles not made of this Earth. Retrievals. Think about that. Somebody's made retrievals of vehicles not made on this Earth.
Right.
And the Identified Area Phenomena Task Force at the Office of Naval Intelligence was described in a Senate Intelligence Committee report last month. The unit standardizes collection and reporting on unidentified aerial phenomenon, any links they have to adversarial foreign governments, and that they pose a threat to the U.S. military assets and installations, the report said. So, the government's talking about where they're concerned about. This is a complete unknown for them, is what they're saying. They don't know who this is. They don't know what this is, and they're concerned about what it could do to military infrastructure, and rightly so, I should think. It goes on to say the Identified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force at the Office of Naval Intelligence was described in a Senate. I'm sorry. Okay. However, the committee remains concerned that there is no unified, comprehensive process within the federal government for collecting and analyzing intelligence on unidentified aerial phenomenon, despite the potential threat it added. Yeah, because the government's done everything they could possibly do to cover everything up.
Right.
And then it says, in the report, the Senate Intelligence Committee directs the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, to submit a report to the Congressional Intelligence and Armed Services Committees on unidentified aerial phenomenon. The report must include observed airborne objects that have not been identified. The committee says that the report should be submitted within 180 days of the enactment of the Intelligence Authorization Act of fiscal 2021. The bill was introduced on June 8th of 2020. The New York Times reports that a small group of government officials and scientists believes that the objects of undetermined origin have crashed on Earth and have been retrieved, including former Senator Harry Reid. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Roswell, and Roswell is just one of them. I mean, supposedly there are 4 or 5 crashes that we've actually retrieved in this country, and there's a story about one out in South Africa, of all places.
No,
and supposedly the one I heard about in South Africa, they were actually living beings. They couldn't get them to eat or something. Yeah, the story I heard, they couldn't get them to eat or whatever, so they called the American government, and we went and picked them up.
I got to stop you for a second, Tommy.
The publication cites Eric W. Davis. Okay.
There's probably 30 or 40 crashes. There's more than 5, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there could be. I mean, you're talking about technology that has problems like any other piece of technology. Well, encounter I had in Iowa, I'm absolutely convinced that 2 smaller ships were actually aiding a larger one. I mean, I watched that with my own 2 eyes. I saw that happen. But the publication cites Eric W. Davis, an astrophysicist who worked as a subcontractor and a consultant for the Pentagon UFO program. Davis, who now works for the defense contractor Aerospace Corporation, said he also gave briefings on the recovery of unexplained objects to staff members of the Senate Armed Services Committee on the Intelligence Committee on October 21st and October 23rd of 2019, respectively, the Times added. So Congress is aware of this. This guy's briefed Congress on this. There are people on the Senate Intelligence Committee that know. I mean, they've seen the disclosure. They know what's going on at this point. And that's my opinion of it. That's what I'm taking from this. As we have said previously, the Department of Defense and all military departments take any incursions by unauthorized aircraft into our training ranges or designated airspace very seriously and examine each report, a spokesman for the Department of Defense told Fox News via email. This includes examinations of incursions that are initially reported as unidentified aerial phenomenon when an observer cannot immediately identify what he or she is seeing. The Department of Defense, she explained, does not discuss publicly the details of either observations of the examination of reported incursions into the training ranges or designated airspace, including incursions initially designated as UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. In other words, they're telling you right there, they're keeping their mouth shut about it. They're not disclosing anything to us. That's what that means. Okay. Now, regarding the task force mentioned in the article, I can say that the department is creating a task force to gain knowledge and insight into the nature and origins of UAPs, as well as other operations, capabilities, performance, and/or signatures, she added. Now, look, they have been examining this. This has been going on forever. This decades and decades. I mean, you can even talk about the Foo Fighters of World War II. You know, so you can bet your bottom dollar that the government has been elbow deep in this subject ever since. I mean, for decades upon decades. And they're kind of coming off like, well, now we're going to investigate it. And that's crap. I mean, obviously they've already been investigating it. That's why we're talking today.
Right.
Fox News also has reached out to Aerospace Corporation with a request for comment on this story. In speaking with the New York Times, Reed said he believes the government and the private sector may have retrieved materials from unidentified objects. After looking into this, I came to the conclusion that there were reports, some were substantive, some not substantive, that there were actual materials that the government and that the private sector had in their possession, Reed said in an interview. Reed's comments are the latest from the former lawmaker. In June 2019, he told Nevada's KNPR that he wished lawmakers would hold public hearings into what the military knows. You know,
right.
I mean,
Robert Bigelow from Bigelow Enterprises, he claims that he had in his possession alien materials at one time, and he had to build a certain type of room to hold them because otherwise they would either dissipate or would be highly radioactive. And I know for a fact that that is the case. So we've had in our possession materials that are of unknown origin for quite some time. So for them to come out and say, oh yeah, we have debris. Well, I think most of the ufology community already knew that, and we were just waiting for official verification. And now they're coming out and they're actually saying it. So in my opinion, even though they're probably still going to do the trickle down disclosure program, kind of like how ATIP trickled down the Nimitz videos, they're probably going to do the same thing, what with the classified information in regards to debris, because as we all know, at least for the most part, most of us know that the information is very compartmentalized. So what one person knows in reverse engineering, other people may not know because they're not in the loop. So maybe the information that's coming out will be very disseminated when we receive it. So hopefully we'll get the real story, and we'll get the information as they're promising. Tucker Carlson on Fox News seems to be impressed with what he was briefed on, but not giving us the full story in his little news clip. But I do have a video that I want to bring up that
let me finish this article. Let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tommy. I didn't know. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. They would be surprised how the American people would accept it, Reed said during the wide-ranging interview. People from their individual states would accept it, which, I mean, I don't know. I'm not. When it comes to disclosure, I'll put it this way. Up until 2016, I would have said, yeah, we can handle it. We could, the American people can handle that. We can deal with it. We can move right on past it. But then after we've seen everything that's happened after 2016, I'm no longer convinced that the average American can handle this. I'll be honest with you about that. The former Nevada senator who also tweeted multiple times about the topic, including in April, when he said he was happy that the Pentagon released 3 of the videos, the Tic Tac videos is what he's talking about. But in December 2017, Fox News reported that the Pentagon had secretly set up a program to investigate UFOs at the request of Harry Reid. So, you know, they can come off like, oh, we're gonna go ahead and put some thought into this. Now we're gonna put some investigation into it. They can do that all they want to, but I think most of us out there already know that they've been investigating the crap out of this for decades. They just don't want to tell us about it.
Right. One thing I want to say to Iron Jacket in the chat room, he said this spacecraft is from China or Russia, and they are much more advanced, and that's why they have so much pollution and so on and so forth. Well, I'm going to say this to you. They have so much pollution because they don't have pollution regulatory commissions like we do in the United States. Okay. The other reason is because they're a manufacturing country. They have taken over manufacturing of a lot of other countries' product lines. The other thing I want to say is in regards to advanced technology in China, yeah, they have advanced technology, but they don't have the advanced technology that we're talking about. The advanced technology that we're talking about is technology that is created with elements that are not found on Earth. Okay, so if they're not found on Earth, then you cannot manufacture them here. It's impossible. They're not even on the elemental charts. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to say to you, if that's the case, they're out there making some type of vehicle out of metals or materials, or say let's just guess biomechanical ships or whatever they use that are not made from anything on Earth. So what this revelation from the New York Times and from the Office of Naval Intelligence, which is directly responsible for handling any UFO investigations in the United States and sometimes in other countries as well, we are not necessarily going to receive what we're expecting. But I have a video to play after Tommy has this comment.
Yeah, listen, folks, I'm looking at the chat right now. Listen, guys, we're not really here to discuss politics tonight. If you want to discuss politics, you can come over to my channel, Tommy Highway TV, and we can do that. But if we could just go ahead and kind of knock the politics down here so we can talk about what we're here to talk about, we'd appreciate it, okay?
Yeah, and coronavirus. We're not talking about coronavirus tonight. Although I do have to say one thing about that, and then I'll stop. Coronavirus. Possible theory that it might be an off-world alien virus. Just a theory. Anyways, I am going to go to my video now, and we'll play that. This is entitled Proof UFOs Are Real, Admission by the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence, the Pentagon, and others.
Here with more former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Christopher Mellon. Christopher, do you believe the UFOs exist?
We know that UFOs exist. This is not no longer an issue. The Navy itself has publicly acknowledged the fact that they exist. And Navy pilots, active duty pilots, have gone on the record in the New York Times acknowledging the fact that they exist. So the issue now is, why are they here? Where are they coming from? And what is the technology behind these devices that we're observing?
Are there indications that these unidentified flying objects are doing things that this world is not capable of?
There are indications, actually. The Nimitz incident, a famous example of this, which was well documented by multiple radars, multiple pilots in broad daylight. That vehicle demonstrated speeds in excess of 5,000 miles an hour. It was able to hover 50 feet above the ocean after descending from above 80,000 feet. So the pilots who are observing these craft are absolutely mystified, and that comes through clearly in their public statements.
This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically 0 up towards about 12,000 feet, and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
The bottom line, what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
It's hard to understand, how do these vehicles maintain lift? How are they propelled? There are no wing surfaces, there's no exhaust. So there's nothing that we're familiar with that we've deployed in the air that has a power source other than chemical energy, like fuel. These are so radically different than anything we're familiar with, and their performance is so advanced and so sophisticated. It's frankly just baffling.
So is it fair to boil it down to two possibilities? Either another country has leapfrogged the United States in technology, or extraterrestrial?
Those are the leading hypotheses, yes.
Do you believe, based on your decade of serving in the U.S. government on this question, that the U.S. government has in its possession any material from one of these aircrafts?
I do, yes.
You think the U.S. government has debris from a UFO in its possession right now?
Unfortunately, Tucker, I really have to be careful of my NDA. I really can't go into a lot of more detail in that.
Okay.
But simply put, yes.
In my association with Project Blue Book, I know very well that it was not a scientific project. Also, I also know that they never would notify the media when an interesting case came up. They did everything they could to keep it down. So they definitely withheld information.
You know, when I first interviewed Alan years ago, there was a theory going around that anybody who saw a flying saucer was probably befuddled by swamp gas somewhere in Louisiana and didn't know what he or she was seeing. We've had a lot of documentation since that time.
I think that one of the main things that has come out here that Peter has done is to substantiate the credibility of many of the civilians, because it was easy to, and still is, to discredit a civilian. Much more difficult to discredit a military man. In Blue Book, for instance, we would get reports from military pilots, and that was particularly embarrassing to the Air Force, because after they had trained those men, and they couldn't very well, they could say that a civilian pilot might have been untrustworthy, but they could hardly say that of their own military pilots. And we got case after case after case from military pilots which never hit the press. There are three things about this whole thing, Tom, that no one can deny. They're incontrovertible points. Even the grossest skeptic can't deny them. First of all, is that the UFO reports not only exist but persist. See, when I started with the Air Force, I thought that this was a fad. In a few years, it would just disappear.
Be all over, okay.
And it's global. We have reports now from 140 countries. I mean, practically as many countries as there are in the United Nations. And the most important of these three things is that many, unfortunately not all, but many of the reports come from highly, highly credible, technically trained people, you see.
The phenomenon has not changed a great deal. It has not changed materially since 1947. And I'm quite sure that neither we nor the Russians had anything like the capabilities demonstrated by the UFOs in 47. I don't think we have now. So I've given up the whole idea that it could possibly be from any place on Earth.
There have been ET visitation. There have been crashed craft. There have been material and bodies recovered. And there is some group of people somewhere that may or may not be associated with government at this point, but certainly were at one time, that have this knowledge and have been attempting to conceal this knowledge or not permit it to be widely disseminated.
Well, these objects kept coming over at flying the same kind of formation that we fly in our fighters.
Where were you flying?
We were flying in Germany, and we were flying F-86s. And they would come over and do the same maneuvers that we make, except every once in a while one of them would go zip. And you just can't do that in a fighter, a conventional fighter. Well, yeah, they weren't just random. They were flying fighter formations, very definitely under positive control. They're just typical saucer shape, double lenticular shape, metallic. looking. I think they were definitely piloted vehicles, each one with pilot in it, and very definitely in communication with one another, because they would have flights of more than 4. They'd have flights of maybe 12 or 16 all across, and when they make a turn, they'd cross the flights in under, and they had to be in communication. But this time I was involved in the research and development and doing very classified programs myself, at the test center. So I knew that we didn't have any vehicles of that kind, and I was 99 9/10% sure that the Russians didn't have any of that type either. So there certainly was, at that point in time, there was no doubt in my mind that this vehicle was made at some other place than here on Earth. In my opinion, I think they were worried that it would panic the public if they knew that someone had vehicles that had this kind of performance way back right after World War II period of time. So they started telling lies about it. And then I think they had to cover another lie, and tell another lie to cover their first lie, and now they don't know how to get out of it. Now it's going to be so embarrassing to admit that all these administrations have told a lot of untruths that it's going to be embarrassing to get out of it.
Since my name has become connected with UFO matters in quite a big way in this country, and in 1 or 2 other countries too, I have frequently been asked by a person of my background, a former chief of the defense staff, a former chairman of the NATO military committee, why I think there is a cover-up, or what the reasons may be for governments wishing to cover up the facts about UFOs. And a number of explanations have often been put forward, of which the most frequent and perhaps the most plausible is that the governments concerned, which are primarily that of the United States and that of my own country, believe that if they told the truth, which is that there are objects in our atmosphere which are technically miles in advance of anything that we can deploy, that we have no means of stopping them coming here, and that we have no defense against them should they be hostile, that, I believe, is because governments fear that if they did disclose those facts, people would panic. People would rush about, jam the switchboard like they did on that famous day in New York when there was a spoof, Martians have landed. People will go mad and they'll jump up and down. I don't believe that at all. I've said so in print. I've said it in the foreword I wrote to one of Timothy Good's books. I do not believe that people today in the 21st century are going to panic at that sort of information. After all, they have put up with the introduction of nuclear weapons, the destruction of 2 Japanese cities 50 years ago. They put up, not put up with, it's the wrong word, they take as a matter of course that we can land vehicles on Mars. They land to the precise instant forecast years before, vehicles on distant planets. Why should they panic? We are being visited and have been visited for many years by people from outer space, from other civilizations, that it behoves us, in case some of these people in the future or now should turn hostile, to find out who they are, where they come from, and what they want. This should be the subject of rigorous scientific investigation and not the subject of rubbishing by tabloid newspapers.
There is abundant evidence that we are being contacted, that civilizations have been visiting us for a very long time, that their appearance is bizarre from any kind of traditional materialistic Western point of view.
The case of contact, of course, the evidence is overwhelming. There's something happening. Tens of thousands of UFO photographs, very well-grounded researchers researching the abduction phenomenon. And we realize that something is happening, something is unfolding. We can't deny that.
Thanks so much, Professor, for coming on. So with this announcement by the United States Navy, what has changed? What is different now that they've said this?
We are now witnessing a tipping point. You see, the burden of proof used to be on the believers to prove that UFOs are real. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the government and the military to prove that they're not real. But the evidence is overwhelming. We have all this information from U.S. Navy pilots. We now have metrics. We can actually measure how fast they travel, how high they are, what kinds of centrifugal forces that they can experience. And science, remember, is based on things that are testable, reproducible, and falsifiable. Now we have testable information, a game changer.
Do you also believe that UFOs have come to Earth?
There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence. And I spent millions and millions. I probably spent more as an individual than anybody else in the United States has ever spent on this subject.
Is it risky for you to say, you know, in public that you believe in UFOs and aliens?
I don't care.
You don't worry that some people will say, did you hear that guy? He sounds like he's crazy.
I don't care.
Why not?
It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to change reality of what I know.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
One of the most amazing things to us, or at least to me, was that these objects would be out there all day, and the speeds that they're exhibiting, as well as the flight characteristics. There's no platform or really energy source that I'm aware of that could allow something to stay in the air as long as these objects were.
Maybe these objects are Russian or Chinese, but your piece points out Russia and China have literally lost aircraft chasing these things. So they're not Russian or Chinese.
So we have a declassified British government document, which is a research document into UFOs that points out a couple of times, actually, that about 4 Soviet pilots, perhaps Russian pilots since, were lost in trying to engage these aircraft.
Were killed. Does it say how?
Doesn't say how. And I haven't been able to find out how. I did hear from someone, though, engaged was an appropriate term to use, so that they were trying to shoot these things down, was the implication.
Okay, so if Russia, China, and the U.S. have all had this experience, then these are not.
These are not. And I think that's a pretty clear assessment on the part of the military.
These are not made by human beings.
No. Well, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment based on the capabilities, especially with some of the aircraft that the Navy have seen in recent years are manifesting, right? That you have things going hundreds of knots under the water, anti-gravity, instantaneous hypersonic acceleration, that you have basically capability performance without jet propulsion.
Right.
This stuff is not stuff that China or Russia have anywhere near the capability
Or
of.
that physics can explain.
Exactly.
So why is the Pentagon lying about this? Why have they lied about it for so long?
I mean, you know, that's the golden question. I think one reason is that a lot of people in the Pentagon fully don't understand what this is. I think they come to the conclusion it ain't from here.
Yeah.
But beyond that, they're somewhat flummoxed.
And you think they have come to that conclusion?
Yes, confidently.
They think this is extraterrestrial, just to be totally blunt about it.
Or extra dimensional, something extra. Let's put it that way.
It's not from this world.
Not from this world, and not from Elon Musk. You know, some people say maybe it's some secret billionaire somewhere. It's too advanced.
Concerned should we be about the briefing that you received on UFOs? Is that a concern that for pilots? Is there anything you can mention to us about that?
Well, I think some of the press reports are accurate. I think people are taking this issue much more seriously, and you know, I'm not going to get into any of the contents of the briefing or the classified briefing, but what I think one of the key takeaways I'd have is that the military and others are taking this issue seriously, which I think in previous generations may not have been the case.
Not 2 people, 4 people, 6 people, 20 people, but hundreds and hundreds of people have seen these things, sometimes all at the same time. We've had some of our military installations in South Dakota, up that way, our missile defense system where they've come out, there they are up there, the people at the base. And since then, in recent months, we've had pilots who they were originally, Sam, they were afraid to tell their superiors, hey, I was out there and I saw this, because they afraid it would hurt their promotions, which it would have done. But now, pilots have said, now they have an obligation to start reporting. And the reason for that is some of the work that we did. And it's been good because, as I've said before, you know that China's doing it. We know that Russia, which is led by someone who was head of the KGB, you know they're doing it. And so we better take a look at it too, because with what the pilots have said the vehicles that they see, we do not have any type of ability to do what they do.
The most important facts for us and the American people to understand are the facts that haven't been said today. And the reason why they haven't been said is that they are largely classified. And the reason that's important is that the American people have no idea, really no idea, about the immensity of the threat in space. And I've made this comment in a classified setting, that I wish the American people could be present in this room, not this room, but SCIF, because our adversaries know what they are doing. We know what they are doing. They know, we know what they are doing, but the American people have no idea. And so this discussion and debate will have very little interest in the American public. It's carried on in a level of, forgive me, bureaucratic language that most Americans would have trouble seeing an immediacy in their daily lives. But if they were privy to what we hear, and you know it much better than we do because you live it, I think they'd be pretty alarmed. This is not by way of criticism of you, because you're living with the strictures of what is classified and not, but I think we have a real obligation to explain to the American people why space is a domain that matters, why the threats there are real and urgent, why they are growing in importance.
Okay. Wanted to say a few things to some of the people in the chat in regards to the different species supposedly in contact with the Earth. I cannot verify beyond a shadow of a doubt how many there are, but I have heard there's upwards of 900 documented races. Now, in regards to the release of information, like they were saying in there, they were saying, yes, UFOs exist, but they are also saying that they were insinuating that there might be a threat to Earth from space. And maybe that is one of the reasons why they're keeping it quiet from everyone, because they don't want people to react in a negative way. Now, I have seen other mainstream big name ufologists claim, no, most aliens are benign, that they are not going to be a threat to the Earth, that the Earth is actually the threat to them, that we are the threat to them. We are the ones that are more dangerous because of our innate inner desire for violence, aggression. If we could rise above that, then perhaps we could have peaceful contact with peaceful benign races. But who's to say there isn't a negative hostile civilization in contact with Earth? And the reason I say that is there's a duality in life between darkness and light. And without light, you can't have darkness. And without darkness, you can't have light. So if that is the case, then that would apply to alien life. So the big thing tonight is that we were going to let everybody know that It is indeed a fact that the Office of Naval Intelligence and the Pentagon has admitted to the existence of alien life through their admission that the off-world vehicle debris that they have or the ships that they have were not made on Earth. Now, a lot of comments were made in the chat where, well, perhaps they were metals manufactured in space that might still be ours. And that's a possibility. I would have to say that is a very good possibility, because I do know that at one point there were shuttle missions that were made that were not broadcast to the American public, where they went up in space and they manufactured certain types of metals in a vacuum.
In glass.
In glass, yes. The reason they had to do this is because the metals would not be able to maintain their structure on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Not a pressurized environment.
Right. They had to take it to space. So now, if you do that and you alter the elements, then they seem to appear as if they're not from Earth. So if they use that for something in space, say building a Space Force craft or vehicle, okay? Let's just put that out there. If they were building a Space Force craft or vehicle in space, you know, low Earth orbit, where there's not a lot of gravity, okay? Then if they're using these metals to strengthen the structure of the craft, then if those vehicles crash, right, then we have off-world metals. So perhaps they're not all alien. They could possibly be ours as well. That's a theory I want to propose. But right, David Wenbert, I would say there is just no reason to believe the aliens are any less violent or otherwise morally better than we are. Correct. But then again, you got to think about it this way. There might be civilizations out there that actually have no idea what violence or aggression is. That maybe what we consider their violence and their aggression is their science. It's how they do their scientific discovery. So when they take human body parts that were supposedly found on a couple different crashes, one was at Aztec, New Mexico in 47. Maybe they're just doing that for scientific reasons. And people are assuming that it was meant for food. But then again, we don't have the full story from the people in the know. And when Tommy was reading the article from the New York Times, it was he made the comment that the ships could not be from here, and in most cases, that's what this announcement is saying. Okay. But what I'm going to say to you is you have to be open-minded to the idea that perhaps some of them were from here and they were just reverse engineered with alien metals. Okay. And the metals were manufactured in space. So they were off-world metals. So there you go. You got another idea.
If I may, think of the human race in terms of all the different subspecies that we have here.
Right.
I'm talking about the races and all that. Now, imagine if, well, those of you that have been in high school and did high school projects and terrariums and all that, what is a terrarium? Well, you set up an artificial environment and you put different creatures and different plants and all that inside there, and you watch them interact, and you take data from that, right?
Right.
What if that's what we are? What if that's what we are to these aliens? What if they seeded our DNA, which supposedly they changed our DNA multiple times from the hominids? What if that's what we are? I mean, that would be a hell of an experiment, a long-term experiment. When you're talking about someone or a people that are a million years ahead of us in technology, I mean, the long-term experiment is probably not a hard thing for them to pull off.
Also, what if we are more than that? What if we are, let's talk about the theory of the prison planet. What if we were brought here and, like Tommy said, they're studying us and trying to re-engineer the way that we conform to the universe, and
or interact with each other, even
and we are just not rising above the aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was the reason why we were removed in the first place. And the theory is that we're being quarantined. There have been reports from very talented and very educated astronomers saying that they have seen large ships in our universe or in our galaxy, not necessarily surrounding Earth, but within range of Earth. And if this is the case, then it is a plausible idea that we are being quarantined, kept from space because of our aggression. I mean, we can go out only so far, and then we're turned back. I mean, we were supposedly warned off the moon. So if we actually went to the moon, okay, and we were actually on the moon, and we were warned off, who warned us off? And how did they communicate that warning? I always wondered about that. According to what I understand, there were ships on the edge of the Sea of Tranquility when they landed, and when they were going down from the lunar orbiter with the lunar lander, they could already see ruins and buildings on the moon's surface. So because of that, false footage was inserted into the news feed when people watched the landing, so we wouldn't see the true landing. Now, I'm not going to go deep into the moon landing theory of whether it was real or whether it wasn't, but if it was real, and if there are buildings and ruins there, and there are aliens there, and we were warned off, then perhaps that is what backs up Harry Reid's comment that there might be a possible threat in space.
What did Obama nuke on the backside of the moon? I mean,
it makes you wonder.
We did this under the guise of finding water. Okay, we're going to find. Okay, so you're going to heat the ground up to 16,000 degrees to find water. Okay, you're going to irradiate whatever water's there to find water. That whole story doesn't hold water is the problem. Okay, we hit something.
Water,
right? I mean, you don't send a nuclear weapon to find water. You don't do that. That just doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, you're going to evaporate whatever water's there if there's any there in the first place. So now we hit something on the backside of the moon for some reason.
Right, and yeah, that's a story in itself, because I do remember that before they did that, they also dropped one of the space probes that they sent to the lunar surface. They dropped it, and let it hit the surface of the moon, and it rang like a bell. So what does that indicate?
Right.
It doesn't just indicate an iron plate. It indicates that there's a possibility that the moon itself might be something other than what we think it is. What I'm going to say is this. You know, I've done a lot of research in regards to UFOs. I've done a lot of research in regards to the moon and in regards to conspiracy theories and everything. And what I'm going to say is this. We have a little bit of the story, but we don't have the full story. If we had the full story, I bet it would be so mind-blowing that we wouldn't be able to wrap our head around it. And perhaps that might be one of the reasons why we don't get the full story in regards to alien life. We get parts of it. I mean, what would happen, honestly, anyone in the chat, what would happen if we were told tomorrow that giant alien spacecraft, bigger than the ones in Independence Day, were surrounding our Earth? We're hiding out in our solar corona, okay? And they were planning to invade. what would we do?
Instant panic. Break down society immediately.
Yeah, society would collapse.
Big
I mean,
time.
look what happened recently in the news with police violence. Our society collapsed for a while. Imagine what it would be like if it was an alien invasion, or even if it was a false flag alien invasion, which everybody's talking about. What if it is a false flag alien invasion, where they're using Project Bluebeam to make you believe that they're these giant ships? Okay? Where they're using the rhetoric from that news report I played in regards to a threat from space. In regards to Trump coming out and making Space Force. Oh, we got to be dominant in space. Well, why? What is the reason?
Well, I think Trump's method right there, his opinion on that is the fact that that's because the Chinese have become more active in space-based weaponry, things like that. So have the Russians. So I think that might be, I don't know, just my thought.
I understand that, but there also might be other reasons.
Could be
because he has been partially briefed, according to some insiders I have spoken to. He has been partially briefed on what is going on behind the scenes in regards to black op coordinated efforts in regards to UFO information. Not many presidents have been. They're always out of the loop. And I don't know. At one time, he said he was going to come clean with all the information, but now he's claiming, no, I don't know if I necessarily believe in them. Right. Okay, you don't believe in them, yet your own military industrial complex is coming out and saying, oh, yeah, they're real. You know, and then the Pentagon, you know, the one that you rely on for all your military activities around the world, right, is coming out and saying, we've got proof of off-world vehicles not being made on Earth, and you still claim that they may or may not be real. Well, I'm going to tell you this, folks. If you don't believe that UFOs are real, and you don't believe that alien life exists, that's up to you. But there is evidence now, and there is measurable evidence, and there is documented evidence now from the New York Times, from several different news organizations. Of course, you can't always believe mainstream media, but then again, on this subject, they've always made fun of it. In fact, Tommy, make your comment, and then I've got a video clip I want to show about how the media is making fun of this issue.
All I can tell you is that from a person, and I just put a link out there to my book, I've had a couple of experiences and I wrote stories about them. All I can tell you is that when you encounter, if you ever have the opportunity or the luck, I guess, to encounter this technology, you automatically know it's not from here. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's so far more advanced than anything that we could pull off here. And my experiences were 30 years ago, but I mean, the 3 decades, it changes nothing compared to what I saw. These things are not, they're just so far advanced. It's just almost unbelievable. But like Tim said, and like I believe, they also, because they are a machine of sorts, they also have their problems, and sometimes they drop out of the sky because, you know, machines do that.
Yeah, they actually been dropping out of the sky because of our radar systems. They interfere with their propulsion technology, and it tends to drop them out of the sky, or at least that's what I've been told. Also, we've shot a few down using laser weaponry, something called Brilliant Pebbles, which is another advanced exotic weapons technology, and that was developed under the STI program. So yeah, they use that. There was that famous video of something approaching Earth from space, and you could see it approaching the curvature of the Earth. And then there was a flash from down on Earth, and you saw this beam of light come up, and then the object turns around and goes back out into space. Well, that is an instance where brilliant pebbles was utilized to fire at a UAP or a UFO that was entering Earth's atmosphere. I know this for a fact because I talked to somebody in the United States Air Force who happens to be my brother-in-law, who was a lieutenant colonel, and he verified this incident because he's no longer in the service and he's not bound by his NDA or non-disclosure agreement. I just thought I'd let you know that. I do have a video now I want to show you. It is short. It's 2 minutes long. It's in regards to mainstream media making fun of the fact that some UFOs are not made on Earth as if it was on cue. And I want you to watch the woman anchor, the female anchor. This is incredible, actually. So here we go. Gotta make it big. Here we go. Gotta give a shout out. This intro was made by my friend Occams Razor.
Some breaking and potentially explosive news today, which is that the UFOs Commission, basically within the Pentagon, will be giving some findings and reportings to the Senate Intelligence Committee. This unit is inside the Office of Naval Intelligence. Now, Senator Marco Rubio saying that it's important for the public in order to find out more. But the real bombshell here is actually an interview in the New York Times by a man named Eric Davis. He's an astrophysicist who worked on the subcontractor and a consultant for that program since 2007. Now, Mr. Davis had this to say. He now works for Aerospace Corporation. He said he gave a classified briefing to the Defense Department agency as recently as March about retrievals from, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. So,
what?
There you go.
That is crazy.
He said he gave classified briefings on retrieval of these unexplained objects to staff members of the Senate Armed Services Committee on October 21st, 2019, and to staff members of the Senate Intelligence Committee 2 days later. So we are going to need to see the transcript of those documents, and I'm going to call for Marco Rubio in order to release all of that.
We need full transparency here.
Yeah,
the people need to know.
Absolute full transparency. But this is a bombshell accusation. And as far as I can understand, this is the first revelation about the most recent testimony given to the Senate Intelligence Committee regarding this matter ever since the story was broken open in the Times back in 2017.
Okay. Yeah, that lady was nuts. She was acting as if on cue. She was ready to laugh. And then the male anchor, after he got done talking, he chimed in with laughter as well. And this is the way that the UFO subject has been treated for decades. And the mainstream media is just propagating the same rhetoric over and over and over again, that UFOs are a silly subject and those who believe in it are breathing swamp gas and are running around loony out in the boonies somewhere. So what I can say to you is disregard the majority of mainstream media reports.
Yeah.
The only
on damn near any subject for that matter.
Yes, I mainly rely on Tucker Carlson for the UFO reports because he seems to be extremely interested in the subject. But then again, you have to take that with a grain of salt as well and make up your own mind. I do have, see here, I want to just show you one other thing. Oh, where is it? I'll find it. Here it is. Okay, I want you to see this. This is the Marco Rubio pushes bill through the Senate that looks at UFO frequency, origin, and national security threat. This came out, I would say about 4 or 5 days ago. It's an important piece of footage. Here we go.
Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Marco Rubio wants a detailed report on what the government knows about UFOs. The Florida Republican pushing legislation that would force the Director of National Intelligence to detail information about UFO origins, frequency, and potential threat to national security. Earlier this year, the military released video of 3 encounters by Navy pilots that had been leaked online. This is not a joke story, and we're following it.
CBS 4's Jim DeFede spoke to Senator Rubio.
Jim, perhaps on a much lighter note, Senator Rubio wants naval intelligence to prepare a public report on UFOs. What's that all about?
So, as the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Rubio very quietly, just about a month or so ago, attached into a bill that's working its way through the Senate, this idea of wanting to know some of the aeronautical, differences that we're sort of seeing. What we call UFOs, he doesn't want to use that term. The Navy doesn't use that term, but he says there are objects flying over military bases, encountering civilian airliners, encountering military jets that they just cannot explain, these phenomena. And he wants to know, now, is it from another galaxy? Is it from China? These are the questions that he's trying to answer. And he says there's no reason to keep this information classified. He wants the Office of Naval Intelligence to issue a report, go through everything, release it publicly, and let's try to get some answers.
Look, here's the interesting thing for me about all this, and the reason why I think it's an important topic, okay? And that is we have things flying over our military bases and places where we're conducting military exercises, and we don't know what it is, and it isn't ours. So that's the legitimate question to ask. I would say that, frankly, that if it's something of outside this planet, that might actually be better than the fact that we've seen some technological leap on behalf of the Chinese or the Russians or some other adversary that allows them to conduct this sort of activity. But the bottom line is, if there are things flying over your military bases and you don't know what they are because they're not yours, and they exhibit potentially technologies that you don't have at your own disposal, that to me is a national security risk and one that we should be looking into. And so that's the premise I begin with.
Let's clear this up. Who would be looking into this? And they would be generating some sort of a publicly available report on, you're not using the phrase unidentified flying objects. You have another euphemism for it, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is not.
Yeah, I didn't come up with that. That's the one that the military uses internally, and ultimately, that's the one we used. And what we're saying, so the Office of Naval Intelligence, this has impacted the Navy for the most part. I've seen reports on this now for the better part of a decade. Other countries have had similar reports, and so, but for our perspective, there is someone flying in the airspace that no one else is allowed to fly in, and we don't know who it is, and it isn't something we have. We need to know what that is. I mean, that's in my mind. I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't want to know what it is. Maybe there's a completely sort of boring explanation for it, but we need to find out. And so that's really what we're asking about. And we're asking them to make public as much as possible that information. None of that really fits into the mold of classified per se.
All right, but what's your gut? Are we alone in the universe, or is there something else out there?
I don't have a gut feeling about it because it's a phenomenon. It's unexplained. I just want to know what it is. And if we can't determine what it is, then that's a fact point we need to take into account. I wouldn't venture to speculate beyond that.
There we go again with the rhetoric where they're looking for information, but they're not willing to accept the fact that their own Pentagon and their own Office of Naval Intelligence came out and said, yes, they do exist. So why even question it anymore? I mean, come on. The burden of proof lies on the shoulders now of the military to prove what they are, why they're here, what their intentions are. Do they have negative or positive intentions? Are they interacting with us? Are they interfering with our development? What are they doing? So that's what my premise is for this live stream. What do you think, Tommy?
Well, I mean, obviously there's something to all of this because of the way the government's acting, at least at this point. First of all, they've been saying for decades that that there's nothing to this. This is all just a bunch of BS, all this. And now they're coming around and saying, well, maybe not. And we're gonna give you just a little tidbit of information. They're gonna give us the whole thing, just like they blurred the photos of the Tic Tac. I mean, they didn't give us the full definition of that. So I don't know. We'll see in the next day or so what the government that comes up with. Are they going to come out and say that we're not alone in the universe? I don't see that happening. I know we're not. You know we're not. Everybody in this chat probably knows that we're not. But you know, as far as the regular American people, I mean, I just don't see them disclosing it. I just don't see it happening.
Well, if they do disclose, which they kind of did a little bit.
Yeah, it's a soft disclosure.
I mean, it's a soft disclosure. And like I said before, and I'll reiterate it, it's probably going to be a trickle down disclosure where we're going to get bits and pieces here and there just to satisfy the public. Okay. And then they're going to do that to try to quiet us down so that we don't have as much fervor in investigating what we are. We're trying as a ufology community to spread the news, to inform and educate. We are not trying to sit back on our laurels and not do anything about it. That's the thing. I've been in this for a while, and I have to say that I haven't seen anything that has ever made an impact such as what came out of the Office of Naval Intelligence just a couple of days ago. So what I want to say to you is, keep looking at the skies and keep watching, keep reporting UFO sightings, keep recording them.
Yeah.
Because we don't necessarily know why they're here or what they're up to. And we need to keep an eye on that. John Bruno, I have to say this to you in the chat. I want to thank you for the super sticker. I didn't get a chance earlier because we were talking. Thank you very much. Highly appreciated. And I want to thank everyone in the chat room for being here. Good to see you, Survivor Girl. Good to see you, Julie Tree Lover and Dino Ray and Antonio I don't know if I'm saying it right. Zuniga. Cooper. Good to see you. I see you a lot in the comment section of my videos. Good to see you here on the live. Thanks for coming. Cosmic Soul, very good to see you. I hope that you will come in the future to our live streams, or my live streams, and we will try to approach other subjects that are definitely thought-provoking. We're not just going to be another live stream where we sit around and chit-chat. But we are going to be one that approaches subjects that need to be discussed, because when I first got into ufology, I did it because I had a major sighting. And I wanted to see if I could find that same sighting out in the world again. Find out if anybody else had seen the exact same thing. But I can tell you, as of this date, I have not seen the exact same thing. I've come close, but I haven't seen the exact same thing. So in regards to different races of aliens, as Tommy was suggesting, I would have to say there are also different varieties of spacecraft as well. I mean, just refer to Bob Lazar. When he claimed at S4, there were 9 vehicles, and they were all different shapes. Well, maybe they have the same thing we do. You know, like we have Fords and Chryslers and Chevys and Audis and Porsches and all this stuff. Maybe they have the same thing with their vehicles. Different models. It confuses the human population. So maybe that's why they do it. Who knows? But anyways, I want to thank everyone for coming to our live stream. We have to cut it short a little bit tonight because Tommy has to go back to work, and the information that I had has pretty much played out. Has anybody in the chat room got any questions?
Folks, I'd just like to say that we have to assume that no matter what the government's going to tell us, they're going to give us diddly squat, because that's what they've been doing for decades. So the reason that Tim and I do what we do, and other ufologists as well, is that we're out here. We want to hear from you. We want to take everybody's little piece of the puzzle, and we want to put them together with another piece of the puzzle. And if we keep doing that, hopefully we can come up with our own disclosure, and we won't need to listen to the government's BS anymore. That's why we do what we do.
Right. I'm working on a grassroots movement. And what that is collaborating with other UFO channels, collaborating with just regular people on the street, collaborating with as many people as I can talk to get the information out, to get information from them as well. Because everyone that I have spoken to on the street has had a sighting or an encounter. They just don't know where to go to talk about it because they're afraid of ridicule.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what happened to me. I mean, as a government employee and an IT person and all that, I kept my mouth shut. I mean, I had to. I felt like I had to, because I'd be ridiculed, or they'd be looking at me like, well, if you can say things like that in public, maybe you're not government material. But I just worried about that. So
yeah, you might lose your job. Yeah.
I kept my mouth shut with the private sector.
But now with this disclosure, this soft disclosure of alien vehicles being found that are not made on Earth, that they're disclosing that. I've heard recently that now pilots, airline pilots and military pilots are able to report their sightings that they have, their close encounters they have in the military as well as in commercial airlines without threat of losing their position, their rank, or their job. So that is a big step in the right direction.
Tim, we got a question out there about where they can get these shirts. Can you post your link to your store out there?
I tell you what, I will post the link to my store. That also has that banner behind me, by the way. In the rendered version of the live stream on my channel. So all you need to do is check in the summary of my channel, and it'll have the link to my store. It'll also have the link to Tommy's channel, his other channel, so that you can check out that if you like. If anybody in the chat room wants to put their link to their channel or their merchandise store in my chat room, go right ahead. I appreciate every one of you, and I'm more than willing to help you out. So go right ahead and do what you need to do. And we will sit here and stay on the stream so that it can happen. Yeah, I think more people in the UFO community need to work together instead of being separated as singular channels. We all work on our singular channels, but it is better to work together as a team. And then maybe we'll come together and effect positive change. So I want to say thank you to everyone for coming out.
Thank you.
We're going to let you go. Very nice of you being here, and we hope you will come again. Okay? So everyone have a good night, and we'll be seeing you.
Thanks, folks.